Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ian Miller. Come on in, let's have some fun. Yes, I never opened a show like that before. Seriously, I'm very enthusiastic. I want to thank you guys who have subscribed to the channel so far. Seems you guys like to hear me talk and also like to hear what I have to say. So I'm very grateful for that. Also, in case you guys didn't get a chance to see my last episode, the Batman 89 audio drama is up, and you just go on to Newverse Creative's YouTube channel, which is at the link below, and you can just listen to it. And it was fantastic. It was a fantastic experience. You know, I'm gonna be working with them more. And other projects like Batman Meets Godzilla and Batman Enigma and other projects which I can't talk about yet, but I'm very excited to announce those when I announce them. But I am so glad you guys came. I missed you guys. I had a bit of a hiatus, mostly because I had homework. All right, it was overloaded. No. I didn't really have homework. I'm way too old for having homework. I had comic work. I don't consider homework. And that's the thing, you know, that's the most important lesson, you know, in any, you know, thing you want to do in life. If you have something that you love to do, make that your job. Because you'll never work a day in your life if you love doing what you're doing. I love comic book work. But, you know, my comment about, you know, homework made me think about something. We're now in the back to school month, so I figured we should do a little Comics 101 tutorials. We should start those. Pretty much that's how we create comics the triple threat way. So I'm very excited to do that. So for all you up and coming creators, you might want to watch this episode. Now, the first thing that you need to do is have an idea. That's right. You need to have a general idea of what your story should be. You know, whether it's in a sci-fi, you know, genre or superhero genre, whatever genre you want to work in, you want to make sure that you have a great idea. Now, if it comes to, you know, creating a specific character in that idea, that's fine. But here's the thing: you need to flesh out the idea, flesh out the character a bit. You know, for example, when I first created Codename Hunter, it wasn't originally a sci-fi spy thriller. No, it was a spy thriller, but it was actually more modern. And I loved the spy genre, you know, huge fan of it. So I wanted to create something, you know, that was in that particular genre. But when I first started to develop the character and the story, well, the idea, it became more and more like a series that I'm still a huge fan of, 24. It was too modern, and it was too much like 24, you know? It was dealing with real life situations. I was like, you know what, I don't want to do that. I also had other people that read, you know, the idea that I had originally, and they were like, dude, this is too much like 24, don't do it. So I had to rethink. But I came up with a new idea. I still want to do the spy thriller, but instead I decided to set it in science fiction, way far into the future. And all of a sudden, new ideas came up. New possible storylines. So, out of that idea, I started to flesh out more and more about that world. It's very important to flesh out the idea because you want to make sure, you know, that it's good and it's somewhat original. You can borrow from or be inspired by other, you know, genres or other, franchises, but still, you need to have a little originality to it. Make it different. Which now brings us to the next thing. Plot and story. Now, it's very important that when you actually do have the idea, you start to figure out the story. You start to, create the, write the world that you're trying to create. That's very important. Very, very important. Because if you don't have a solid story, you got nothing. Right? So, what you need to do is really sit down and just give a, very small synopsis of what the story of the series or graphic novel, because those are different. I'll tell you why exactly in a bit. Make sure that you have the synopsis down, the story down. For example, going back to Codename Hunter, I kept thinking, well, what should that world look like? What should it, what should it be? Who is the character? So during the plot and the story, you need to actually come up with the character's background. Just a little bio, just to say who the character is, what's his world look like. And then comes the supportive characters, the supporting cast members. People that your character sees every day, that they fight along with. Pretty much the character's support group. Now that's very important because your hero needs to have a good support group. You don't want him or her to be a loner, I mean, that's alright. Loners do work very well in comics, but still, you need to have a good supportive cast, and you need to create their bios as well. And if you're just also creating the bios just as you go along, that's okay. But just give them a simple bio. So the readers, they don't get lost. Because a lot of times you'll see comics where they didn't really think about the bios, and they just make it up as they go along, and sometimes people notice that. But if you're very creative, and you make it up as you go along, people won't notice. So, take that to heart. Alright? Some of the best comics that have the best support characters help really sell your main character, but also help you sell the comic. Now, when it comes to also the plot, it's very important to space things out. What I mean is this. Let's say, for example, that you're creating a, ongoing series, right? And you want to create your first storyline. Here's what you do. You need to make a list of what's happening in each issue. For example, I use bullet points, right? When I'm plotting out, the plot of the storyline. So, this is what's going to happen in issue 1. These many things. Make a list. Be very, descriptive when you do that. Because you need to make sure, okay, this is what's going to happen in issue 1. This is what's going to happen in issue 2, issue 3, and so on. Because it helps you figure things out, especially the pacing. Because a lot of times, if you put too much in issue 1, the pacing's going to be all over the place. Now, it's okay to actually have a lot of action scenes in issue 1, but you have to make sure there's enough story in there, to keep the reader invested. I know you guys can actually do that, alright? So, keep that in mind. But let's just say you wanted to do a graphic novel that had, 75 pages or 100 pages, whatever. It's still very important to do the list, just to make sure what's going to happen, in that book, in that graphic novel. And if you're ending on a cliffhanger, and this goes for also the, issue by issue, you need to make sure that it is compelling enough for readers to want to come back and buy another issue. And if you're doing it like a sort of an end credit scene at the end of the graphic novel, make sure, like I said, make sure it's compelling enough that will want to, hold the reader, and make sure they have to say, you know what, I'm going to buy the next issue or the next graphic novel because this is great. So it's very important. Alright, so keep that in mind when you're actually, plotting these things out. Now, which comes next is also very important. Script writing. Now, I would say that script writing a comic is very similar to film script writing, but it's also very different. If you guys actually don't know how to write scripts for comics, I have a few books here that can help you out. This is Panel 1 comic scripts by top writers. Very popular, pretty much one of the Bibles, of comic script writing. And if you're, writing well, you're going to be writing a superhero comic or action comics anyway, so that's definitely one of the books that should help you out with that. But if you want something more specific, you can't go wrong with How to Write Comics the DC Way by the late and great Dennis O'Neil, one of the best comic writers in the business. This is the guy that helped reinvent Batman in the 1970s, so trust me, he knows what he's talking about in the book. I can't tell you how many times this book has actually helped me, in planning out storylines. But, last but not least, we have Stan the Man Lee's How to Write Comics. This is also pretty much considered a Bible in comic book writing. I mean, how could it not? This is from the same guy that created a lot of the Marvel characters. So, you actually have a few books there that actually help you out in script writing. But, and here's the most important thing, because some of you may actually not be, some of you writers may actually not be illustrators, so if you're just a writer and you're sending a script to an illustrator, you need to make sure that when you're describing scenes, describe them in detail. Alright, what the panel is going to look like, what's going to happen in the panel. Alright, you can't really give brief descriptions, because a lot of times, your artists will get very lost. So you guys need to be on the same page. That's very important, because miscommunication often happens in this process. Like I said, be very descriptive, even if it's like maybe a paragraph. Still, a lot of detail helps the artist, because it gets, their mind working, and they'll come up with thumbnails, which are pretty much little illustrations of what the page should look like. Now, when I write a script, I actually do have, thumbnails, to help me think about, okay, what's going to happen in the page, as I'm writing it. So I'm actually writing and illustrating the thumbnails while I'm writing the script, just to get my mind saying, okay, this is what this panel is going to look like, this is what this whole page is going to be about. And you have to also make sure that you number the panels, of what's going to go on the page. Say, for example, I was creating a page where, it has 6 panels. This is how you should go. Panel 1, type in the description, then a dialogue. Underneath that, panel 2, write in the description, dialogue, panel 3, and so on. Make sure that you list the number of panels that the page actually has. Because again, a lot of times people get very lost if they're not communicating properly. And if you're a writer and artist and you're writing your own, your own scripts and illustrating them, then it's a piece of cake for you. It's not a problem. But for you artists, they're, talking to your writers, again, communication, very important. Because I can't tell you how many times I've actually been, I haven't been communicating properly with a writer. I've gotten better over the years, but when I first started out, no. Well, when I first started out, I started writing my own scripts, so every once in a while I would just, I would work with a writer, that I wasn't familiar with. So I need to learn how to communicate. I learned how to communicate with the writers. So that's, again, the key word, communication. Now, when it comes to writing dialogue, now, you have to make sure that it sounds authentic. So this is what I do, and this is what I recommend for you writers to do. When you're typing out a sentence, a dialogue sentence, I want you to read it out loud. I know, it sounds crazy, I know, but I want you to read it out loud. Because, God forbid, because God forbid, if it doesn't sound authentic, the reader's not going to enjoy the comic. The pictures, the images are just one thing. They're only just one part of the comic, creating experience. If the dialogue doesn't work, then the artwork doesn't work. And if the artwork doesn't work, then, well, you don't have a comic. So, imagine if you're typing right now a line of dialogue, and you're reading it like this: the first phrase of our campaign of fear has reached its climax. No enthusiasm, guys. It's just monotone. No enthusiasm. You should read it like this: the first phase of our campaign of fear has reached its climax. I know it's sometime somewhere in this vast universe, I was a voice actor at one point. Well, that's the thing. You need to actually read the dialogue with feeling. Again, as to make sure that it sounds right. Right? See what I did there? But yeah, because that's the most important thing. The dialogue, well, one of the most important things. The dialogue has to sound right, and if you're not illustrating the script, make sure it's descriptive. Now, typically with comic scripts, if we're talking about single issues, the issues are typically, I would say, 24 pages. 22, 24. Let's say just 24, right? You cannot end on 25 pages. And the reason why is this. It needs to be even. It's got to be 24 pages. Or if you want to go ahead and say 28 pages, that's fine. But it has to be even. Why it is exactly, I don't know. But still, it has to be 24 pages. But like I said earlier, if you wanted to write a script that had 75 comic pages or 100 pages, that's a longer commitment. That's like almost maybe a year commitment. So definitely think about that when you're actually writing these things. Personally, I would, go for the, single issues, separate issues. Because then you get people invested, and say, I want to buy another I want to buy another issue of this series. But whatever you want to do, that's up to you. Well, now that we've covered all of that, we're going to go into a little bit about, drawing. Now, as I said before, you have to have thumbnails for what's gonna happen in the issues. You know, you just start thinking about plotting out what's gonna happen on the page. That's why you need the script. So how I do it is this. Like I said earlier, I read the script and start thumbnailing what's going to happen in that page. Then I would go back to the writer and really go over how I see the page happening. Now, you and the writer may differ on, the vision, but you have to be on the same page. And if the writer decides to say, you know what, why don't you change this a bit? Change this panel or this one and this one. Don't sweat it, okay? Because it's all part of the process. Again, you have to make sure that your guys are on the same page. So, what you do then is you make those necessary changes in the thumbnails. Again, you want this in thumbnail situation, during that whole process, because if he actually asks you to make he or she actually asks you to make changes while you're drawing the actual pages and not the thumbnails, then you need to make sure that you can actually redo it. Now that's another process which I'll go into in another episode. But like I said, communication. Make sure you're on the same page. Well, I hope you've all learned the lesson. Now, this is actually going to be a series of tutorials that I'm going to help you, because if you're going into college and you're going to, different programs that actually specialize in comic book work, a lot of times the instructors won't tell you everything. They'll tell you a lot. They will. Make sure you take notes for that. But hopefully, in this series of tutorials that I'm going to actually post on here, I'll give you helpful tips of how to have a successful comic book career. So, keep an eye for that. For next week's episode, I'm actually going to teach you guys how to actually draw, a comic page. Now, whether you guys like to do it, traditional pen and paper, that's fine. Now, personally, I actually like to draw digital, and the reason why is this. Let's say I mess up on a page, right? Even by accident, don't worry. You actually scroll up, edit, and undo the line I just drew, right? You can't really quite do that with the pen and and paper. You mess up on that, you gotta redraw it all over again, and it's a hassle. Believe me, I had spent sleepless nights trying to fix things, that I made mistakes on. And it's another thing. It's okay if you make mistakes. We're all human after all, right? So keep an eye out for that for next week's episode. And then, shortly after that, I'm actually going to go back to doing a few more interviews. I'll make those announcements, next week. So, trust me, a lot of stuff is coming up that you'll be excited about. Well, and aside from that, if you guys also like to check out my other channel, Media Talk with Miller and Smith, you certainly can. Just go down to the link below, and you can find it there. Because I talked to my very good friend Andrew Smith about, I'd say, different things in media today. Sports, movies, particularly comic movies, comic books, obviously, from my end, and what's happening, in the entertainment world. So, trust me, you don't want to miss that either. Well, I think that's all it's going to be for us here at Triple Threat Comics this week. I'm your host, Ian Miller. Have a good night, folks. Seriously, guys? Again? We're not Marvel, okay? We're not. There's not gonna be an end credit scene. Sheesh. We don't have that kind of money yet. Oh, I will say this though. For the Batman Enigma fans, I've already started production on issue 3. So I'm very excited about that. The release date's going to be October 31st of this year. Going to be Halloween night again. So I'm very excited to see your reactions to that. Alright, folks. Also, be sure to actually follow us on our social media accounts, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And if you'd like to follow us on YouTube, just hit that like button and subscribe.